Oh, pen.
Oh, I did bring one.
We've got plenty of those. Look at this picture, it's so cute. One of the kids in Atlanta, I don't remember which one.
Plates and dishes and spoons for dinner. How soon did you I think it's
Those are nice, no?
Yes, I love it.
Me too.
Paper plates.
The palm leaf pressed.
Oh, it's palm.
Palm leaf pressed. That is how we eat in India.
Oh, I like it.
Oh. Sri Rama.
Is Harinder coming today or is she online?
Let's say online. Maybe
She's here. Afterwards we'll have a small meeting. That's why I asked. Long life. I said, is Harinder online or is she coming? And there she was.
there she came.
That means 100 years. You will live. Whether you want it or not. Oh.
One more push.
Very nice. Azaleas.
Azaleas, yes.
Yeah, they don't have a fragrance.
Only the yellow ones.
Yellow ones?
Yeah, if you
Oh.
go to the rhododendron
And
gardens,
if you
just smell the yellow ones.
and if we ask why, we won't know. Maybe Adele will know with all this gardening.
Yes, it does.
I'll make something out of it.
There we go. Oh, this is so nice. This is iris.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah, it's a double colored iris. Beautiful. This will also go in here, except it will need a little more water. Maybe we can still get it. Ah, there. Breathe. Okay. Purple is the day. Purple. Today is a purple day. We're taking it easy. It's Sunday morning. Do you want to come here? How are you? Good. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karnebhih Shriyama Devaah Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraah Sthirairangaisthushtvagam sastanubhihi Vyashema devahitam yadayuhu Swasti na indra vruddhashravah स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Let's see what is happening in our lives. Yeah, this is an important verse for a number of reasons. Number 6, because it deals with the Swarupa or the nature of Brahman. We'll get to the Bhashya. Ease into it slowly. So, the nature of Brahman, which is really your own nature, one's own nature, because really there is no difference between Brahman and you. You are Brahman, that is what is being revealed. So when we talk about that single consciousness, non-dual, the only sentient thing that is in the sense of really is, without ever becoming was or will be, unchangingly is here and now, and that timeless sentient isness, the existence, there is only one source of that existence, which is you, and which is answerable by the question. What is the question? Are you here? Yeah. Yes. That is what it is. So it's immediately available. So we are not talking of something that is remote, even to one's experience, even though we keep saying and we keep hearing the questions, how to experience Brahman, let's not forget that are you here is an experience. Are you here? Yes. How do you know? Because I experience myself. I experience myself in waking, dream and sleep, the famous 3 states which the Upanishad keeps talking about. And so it's all about the experiencer. Brahman is all about experience. It's not out of the ken of my experience. Because if it were, then I have to experience it like gulab jamun, you know. Yeah. What is gulab jamun? Yeah, a ball of calories, fried, you know. I'm trying aversion therapy. Fried and then, you know, immersed, bathed and immersed in, you know, a 3-string sugar syrup, which is a lot of sugar. If you don't know what 3-string is, don't worry. 3-string means very complex, thick syrup. This is what it is. So this gulab jamun has to be, it's a product of experience. No one says, I am gulab jamun, even though you may have downed the whole tin. You won't say that. Because that is separate from oneself and one has to have that experience. And of course, every experience is finite and has a beginning point and an end point. That's why it becomes somewhat alluring, because it's not constant, every experience, except the experience of Brahman. This is very interesting. I thought today I'll try a new tack. Different track. Nothing is new, but different track. So for all the people saying how to experience this Brahman, it is just the only thing that is constantly experienced is Brahman. In and through all the states, even when you say I am in a state, what you are experiencing is Brahman, which is allowing you to cognize and observe this state. So an experience which is other than Brahman. And here, of course, nothing is outside of Brahman, but we are making this Atma Anatma difference right as a strategic tool for understanding this particular thing. Anything whose isness depends on Brahman, meaning like the flower even. Flower is, but it is dependent on I, on Brahman, on Atma, on the self. So anything that enjoys a dependent existence, anything that has this finite nature, and the finiteness is only limited to the name and form, because in essence the flower is me, the pot is me, the is belongs to me, the name and form, pot, etc., that goes away. Flower, petals, stamen, etc., stem goes away, but that is belongs to me, that's the only source of is. So anything that is experienced which has name and form, which is finite, only goes to reveal the infinite nature of the experiencer. So every experience brings me, because without that I cannot experience anything. So even though the experience may be centered on something finite, it still brings me closer to myself if I understand this correctly. So every experience is really dependent upon the I, dependent upon Brahman, dependent upon my own nature, and nothing is outside of the ken of my experience really. And so all the things that I experience, which are finite, really make a statement on me, the infinite. Because the experiences are like little embroidery skeins on the tapestry of the self, really. Sometimes they unravel, but the tapestry, the canvas is not unraveling, it's just a sensation. Yeah, because here we are only using that same buddhi, correct? The same buddhi in which this understanding is shining right now, that I am the only constant experience. I mean, I can't even use constant and experience in the same breath without cringing a little bit, but you will indulge me. I am the only thing that is constant and being experienced constantly, infinitely. That's the only I. And all other things which I experience also resolve into I and emerge from this I. So therefore what? All the states, sleeping, dream, waking, and also within the waking state there are other mini states, panic, alarm, and then what? Flat, bland, flat. How are you? This is when you go like this. Yeah. And then unsure. Sometimes you don't need words because we have sign language. A different version of ASL, And you just say like this. This is not needing a ride, it is needing a pickup in a different way. And then, very flat, blah, sad, and then we have all these, those faces that you put on when you put emails. What are they called?
Emoticons.
Emoticons. I like that word. Emoticons. Very nice. So then you have the laughing face, and even if you don't have the faces, you can make hundreds of faces with just your own keyboard. You put a bracket and before that you put a colon, smiley, yeah. And then you put one semicolon and then a bracket, winky. And this I'm finding out recently because people send all these things. First I have to ponder and say what is it they are doing. Then okay, they are winking at the Swami. All right, so This is Winky, you know. And then there is another, so many things. And then there is a surprised one with, instead of the smiley bracket, you put the colon, which are the eyes, and instead of the smiley one, you put one O, open mouth. This is all new, fresh information. Yeah, open mouthed. This is all teenagers doing it. Sometimes adults also. Yeah, takes a long time to grow out of the teens. So then we have all these things, correct? So all these emoticons, all these various states are dependent upon that I alone, which is constantly being experienced. Where in the same buddhi, unfortunately the reason for the mix-up is understandable, because it's only how many buddhis do people have? Don't say two, because I really, can't handle it today. So how many buddhis people have? One. So in that same buddhi, there are two experiences riding. First is the canvas experience. What is the canvas experience? That infinite I, which is constantly experienced, never without a fail, never, there is no gap. There is no gap, not even as much of a gap as it is in the little blink of an eye. It's an unblinking experience. So in the same buddhi is riding two realities. So first is this experience of I, which is the only thing there is from the absolute standpoint, from the standpoint of that ultimate thing, the thingness, vastu. That is the only thing there that is constantly, that is the chorus, that is the refrain. Sometimes in the background we have this instrument called tanpura. That's not a sitar or a veena, it's a tanpura. It is tuned to the various scales which are going to be performed in that particular raga by the musicians. And then that particular notes, whether it's a sharp or a flat or something like that, that combination of sharp and flat, and it's not going to really give the flavor of the raga, the melody that is being sung or played. What its job is to keep droning the notes in the background, which basically enhance the musician's rendition of the raga and the various improvisations that they make. Because in Indian music, if it's 9/10 improvisation, 1/10 raga really. So the raga is just a little framework so that I can run around in it and play. It's a kshetra, and the musician is a kshetri. Kshetra means field, and the musician is a kshetri and a kshetrajna in this respect. So the musician runs around in the field because the field has been made ripe by the fence posts of the various ornate notes. And so you have a nice little area to play in. It is so beautiful. And what does the tanpura do here? This tanpura with 4 or 5 strings, and then underneath there will be some other mini strings which just resonate this. The major and the minor notes, the keys of this raga. The tanpura just keeps holding the kshetra and resonating the kshetra. It just keeps, even though it's in the background and it's an oft missed instrument, we take it for granted. Nobody, when the players are congratulated at the end, and they all come and then they receive shawls and decorations and medals of honor from swamis and prime ministers and governors, whoever might be there. The musicians come, the tabla player, even though the tabla is in the background, drum, still that person also gets a little place in the sun, because the musician shuts up and lets the person take over and do a few acrobatics with the tabla. And then the violinist, of course, comes. This is a typical South Indian kacheri concert. Then the violinist comes and everybody comes. The vocalist comes. Everybody is honored. Nobody even mentions the tanpura player. They will straggle in at the very end for the group photo with the celebrity. Yeah, because what effort does it take to keep doing ding ding, ding ding, ding ding, ding ding ding? You know, what effort does it take? No effort. You just have to sit there. And then, you know, these days everything is made very comfortable. So the tanpura player sits on a pillow, and the tanpura itself, to get the correct height, is on a pillow, and the elbow is on another pillow. And, you know, 3-4 pillows later, you know, you have this music coming out, you know, this drone in the back, which everybody takes for granted. But I tell you, if the tanpura player got the flu and were not to come, the music concert would be cancelled, really. Because you cannot have that without it, because it allows the musician to play in various fields of notes and harvest and reap those notes, because this constant is there. The whole concert gets enhanced because of this concert, this constant. And so too the tanpura here is Brahman. That constant which allows me, the actor, who is lighting up the actor? Brahman is lighting up the actor. And who is lighting up the field in which the actor I play? Brahman is lighting up the field. And here the same Brahman, which is morphing as it were, just like the same throat of the musician, you know, brings in the high and the low notes together in a certain very beautiful symphony. Here too, you know, the same actor, same Brahman morphs into the actor, the same Brahman morphs into acted upon that object of experience, and the same Brahman allows for this mithya subject and the mithya object to come together and create this mithya happiness. Dependent. Mithya means dependent. Constantly droning the 3 notes, I am now, I am now. Remember yesterday's class? I am here now, I am here now. That's the constant. But why is there a mix-up if it is so clear right now? Hopefully. There is a mix-up because, as I said, both the experiencer and the experienced object of experience are lighted up by the same buddhi. Correct? Mm-hmm. The same one buddhi. If there were 2 buddhis, this problem will not take place. Sometimes I feel I have 2 buddhis. That's why we need the classes. Split buddhi problem. So that's why we need the classes, definitely. Actually, how many buddhis there are? Only one. And that only one buddhi lights up the constant, correct? And also lights up the inconstant, which is constantly changing. That's why the buddhi, identifying with the constantly changing, comes to grief. Whereas identifying with the constant and the infinite is safe. Swasthane tishtati, it remains in its own place. So it's all about relocating, walking the eye over from identifying with the high and low notes of life to the constant, which is safe, which is identifying the truth of the field, which is really helping, me to ride the highs and the lows with equanimity. This is what, even at the relative level, this is what has to be understood. That's why when we unpack the notes of the raga, that is important. But what is even more important is the constant, which enhances the melodies of life. Now there is a delightful mix-up of the example and the exemplified, but that's the whole point. Which enhances the melodies of life. Why? By pointing out the highs and the lows are dependent upon the constant. And the constant being unchanging and limitless, it never comes to fear or grief, never comes to an end, is always there for me to bank on. And so therefore the constant has to be identified. The constant is my home. The Tanpura is my home. That is really what has to be done. So the three little strings there. I am, now. I am, I know, now. Yesterday we unpacked those three strings. See how easy it is? So those three strings which are constantly playing in the background. Because even in listening to a concert, this is the same problem we have. When you listen to the Tanpura, you feel like you're missing out on the vocalist. Improvising. And when you listen to the vocalist, you feel like you're missing out on the Tanpura. But actually, it only goes one way. When you're listening to the vocalist, are you missing out on the Tanpura? No, because of the Tanpura, the vocalist exists. Yeah. And even in the beginning, yes, it feels like when I'm not listening to the Tanpura, I'm getting carried away by the vocalists and crying with the sad, music. Sad music, because there is a very interesting instrument in North India called Shehnai, and it's a long pipe, and the longer it is, the sadder the thing that comes out. It's not exactly a bagpipe, but a bagless pipe. And then, it has various tips that you can change, and depending upon how much air it allows, it's a wind instrument, how much air it allows, you can, the sadder or the slightly, various tones of sadness, the music comes out. But then, strangely enough, this kind of this sad music is supposed to be very auspicious. It's never for a funeral, it's for marriages, naming ceremonies, birthdays. These are the things that the Shehnai is very auspicious. Don't ask why. There's a kind of a sweet sadness. Perhaps it is to keep everything in perspective. Maybe that's why it's got an especially honored place in marriages, to keep everything in perspective. And so this Shehnai, this is that when you listen to that, that sadness of that note, it still doesn't, you can miss out in the beginning. You can miss the Tanpura that is allowing the sadness to play. That's what it is. That's why it is important to not miss the background here. And what is the background? I. That is the background. And all the sadness, the rising and ebbing tides of sorrow, grief, fear, etc. is all cast on this background. And the background is free of everything that it projects. This is why I have to know firmly the background, and I have to relocate and walk this eye over cognitively to the background rather than to what is happening in the foreground. Foreground is boring, really, because it's full of drama. The background is Rama. What is Rama? Ramante yasmin yoginaha. There, the place in which the yogis play, revel, that is Rama. And why is that Rama? Because the word Ram means to revel. That's the only place of happiness. That's the only place of limitless revelry. The other is just a place of rivalry, because all these, inconstants battle for attention. It's a place of all kinds of confusion. Revelry versus rivalry, Rama versus drama. This is what we have to remember. So when in the midst of drama, you just take the D out of it. Yeah. And what are you left with? Rama. Rama, 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 Rama. That's all it is. See, this is a mantra in a minute. Yeah, because people want instant benefit, everything instant, instant dosas, instant everything. And then what now this is? Instant Rama. How to have instant Rama. Take the D out of it. That's all it is. That's all it is, so easy. Remember the Rama in every drama. That's all you have to do. Without Rama, there is no drama. Remember that. Yeah, that's all you have to do. That's all. There is so simple. Why people keep getting worried, I don't understand. But this is what one has to do. And the reason for the mix-up also we know, because there's a single buddhi manifesting both the constant and the high and low notes. That's all it is. That's why when you identify with that, then this one gets as it were missed. It's not really missed. In fact, there's only one note. There's only the Tanpura. The rest of it is a projection. Yeah, the rest of it is a panorama. To continue with that. Yeah, it's a beautiful panorama. If one is connected to the constant, one can enjoy the panorama. The reason why the panorama converts into drama is because the I has got lost in the inconstant. That's why it is. It has to be recalled. And that's why we need japa, that's why we need mantra, that's why we need classes, that's why we need to be in a constant place, especially in the beginning of study and calmness and vigilance, so that this, being with myself, becomes a habit that replaces the older habit of what? Of, riding the highs and lows, surfing, not the internet, but the highs and lows of life. So therefore, this mantra is very important because it is delineating the constant notes of this concert / cacophony called this incarnation. Yeah. This is delineating the constant notes. And in fact, this is very interesting. The constant notes are constant for everyone. That's why they are called constant. Yes. But the cacophony depends, the highs and the lows depends on the raga of each person's. Depends on what? Huh? Karma. Yes. On previous karma or even karma right now. Who says you have to wait for this thing? Sometimes everything is instant karma. Yeah, things happen instantly. And so, the cacophony, the raga, is crafted according to karma. Chitragupta is a musician in addition to being a painter. Chitragupta is the person who allots, we say, we have a mythical figure called Chitragupta, who takes from the endless karmic bundle, who takes a few things and crafts a new karmic profile for the jiva. Has to have a sense of humor, has to be into fine arts, because otherwise how finely choreographs all the 7 marriages and the 15 near misses and all these things, how otherwise it can be all beautifully choreographed. And how each person comes into contact with another person, And then how each person is brought into the Vedanta class. That itself is a big story. If we stop the class right now and ask people online, offline, in front, everywhere, how did you start this study? Oh, well, that's a long story. How much time you got? I was just browsing the bookstore, and then suddenly one book jumped out at me. Come on, did it really jump out? No, honestly, it hit me on the head. It fell from the shelf. This is Chitragupta. And of course, I was doing the polite thing of picking it up. I had no intent of reading it or even looking at the title. But naturally, as I picked it up, out of a feeling of being a good citizen, naturally I looked at the title. And what did the title say? Vedanta in 7 days. Jokes apart, there is one such book called Vedanta. Yes, very ancient book called Srimad Bhagavatam. It's amazing. That is Vedanta in 7 days. Yeah. Yeah. You should read it sometime in 7 days. It's amazing. And Chitragupta, no sorry, another one. Parikshit. Chitragupta finished. Parikshit, the sole descendant after the horrible war of Kurukshetra in the Mahabharata, is cursed because he abused the son of a sage. He abused a sage actually, but the son got offended and cursed him. You will die of snake bite. And the snake hidden behind the trees said, goody, now I know who to bite. Made life easy for the snake. And the snake, of course, duly obedient to the karma, went and bit this fellow. And he knew he had 7 days before the poison coursed through this body and died. So he thought of a great sage called Shuka. Who is Shuka? Huh? Don't know Shuka? Son of Vyasa. Shuka. Who is Vyasa? Don't say I don't know Vyasa. I will not accept that. Who is Vyasa? Author of Mahabharata, author of Bhagavad Gita, author of Puranas, author of a number of shlokas, author of the one who is charged with the responsibility or the credited with the with making everything, all the Vedas into 4. Before there was just one body of knowledge. Viveda Vyasa he is called. So Vyasa's son. Vyasa was a householder. And he wanted Shuka to follow in his steps, which Shuka did till the age of 6, when he left home. Bye, Daddy, he said. What? You're a baby. No. I don't see anything in this life that is worth living. I'm off. Where? How will you live? He says, I'm free as a bird. And that's why he was named Shuka, parrot. The parrot just flies, but the parrot also talks, because when he talked, he made a lot of sense. Parrot makes sense when it talks. It's not empty, idle chirping. And Shuka flew off literally. And he said, but what will I do? You're my son. What if I miss you? I'm missing you. He says, just think of me when you really need me, not just all the time. When you really need me, and when anyone needs me, I'm there. So Parikshit thought of Shuka. Shuka manifested from some tree, and then Parikshit says, I'm very frightened and filled with dread. The poison is coursing through my veins. I have 7 days to live. What should I do? Shuka has a hearty laugh at first. I'm telling you I'm going to die and you're laughing? Shame on you, Shuka. He says, I'm laughing because you at least know you have 7 days to live. I don't know that. So I'm laughing, thinking how lucky you are. And then that is the book called Srimad Bhagavatam, also known as Vedanta in 7 days. It's amazing. So this book, Srimad Bhagavatam, decides to pay a visit and hits you squarely on the head. What are we discussing? Some random person's entry into Vedanta. Yeah, because we don't have the time to take someday we can do that. Perhaps on May 2nd we can do that. Like, how did people get spiritual? We're not talking of getting spiritual. How did people come into a certain kind of a spiritual coming of age? We can discuss that perhaps. But for right now, this is just a random story which everybody can identify with perhaps. So this book hits you on the head and you don't know anything. You don't even barely can make out the title of the book, but something attracts you. And you decide to buy it. And it also happens to be conveniently on sale, 70% off, because who wants Vedanta in 7 days or 7 years? And the book fellow is also says we have to phase out Vedanta and let's sell it 70% off. And this person buys it also. And then, doesn't have time, just reads it once in a while and reads it. But then when the person reads it, oh my God, how much am I missing out? I'm missing myself. Vedanta is really oneself. And then when you read it, when it's properly taught, you first come to the understanding how much I have missed myself. Is it possible to miss yourself? No. But how is this missing happening? This missing is then as though missing. By focusing on the inconstant, the constant is as though missed. Just like the Tanpura, even though it is heard, it is made to be unheard because of the highs and low notes in the concert. So here too, in the concerto of life, I am missing out the constant. And so this is how everyone's story is like this, and that is why the constant has to be understood. Even though everyone's story of how they came to spirituality, how they came back to themselves may differ, that I never differs. The I in me is the I in you, is the I in the so-called serial killer, is the I in everyone. And this mantra number 6 is very important because it talks about the I. It talks about that I, that unchanging constant, under whose umbrella we have to walk over cognitively, because that is the place of locating the I. That is the place of identifying with myself. And so, continuing now with the Bhashya. This I will read for myself because we have already read it. Let me make sure I find it. Yeah, here it is. यः सर्वज्ञः सर्ववित् इति चेतनावत्वविशेषणात् प्राप्तं संसारिणाम् इव चक्षुश्रोत्रादिभिः करणैः साधकत्वं तद् इह अचक्षुः अश्रोत्रमिति वार्यते पश्यति अचक्षुः स शृणोति अकर्णः. We have seen this. And one word we didn't see, that's why I repeated it. Samsarinam iva. He says, Adi Shankara says that just like the samsaris, Brahman does not see. That which is constant doesn't need eyes to see. It is all seeing without needing the eyes. Eyes means you are depending on something else. But here that seeing is knowing, is being, is limitless knowing, limitless being. And that limitless being doesn't need a pair of limited eyes to see. That's what he said. Like even the samsari who is reading this bhashya, this is what he is trying to say. So like samsari means the one who is afflicted by limitations. And then what? Okay, now you can iti ityadi darshanat. Okay, now kim cha. We only know kimchi. What is kimcha? Will be explained. Kimcha tad apanipadam karmendriya rahitam ityetat yatah evam agrahyam grahakam cha atah. Huh? Huh? Yatah evam agrahyam, agrahyam, agrahakam cha atah, correct. Nityam avinashi, vibhum, vividham, brahmadi, sthavaranta, prani bhedaihi, bhavati iti vibhum. Yeah. So kimcha means furthermore. Yeah. And what it really means. Yeah. Furthermore. Furthermore what? Furthermore, tat, that Brahman, that constant I, is what? Apani padam, without the need of hands and legs. Meaning free of karmendriyas. You know, free of karmendriyas means what? Free of organs of action. You know. And so furthermore, Brahman is free of the organs of action. And then yataha means yasmat karanat, because of which reason it is agrahakam, agrahyam and agrahakam. So this grahya grahaka bheda is not there. Grahya means that which is to be caught, you know, like even this apple, correct? That which is to be called grahyam, and then grahaka is the catcher. So the catcher catched dichotomy is not there. Who is the catcher? Brahman. Who is the caught? Brahman. Who is doesn't need to be the catcher? Brahman. Who doesn't need to be caught? Brahman. Because it is self-revealing, it does not need to be caught. Therefore agrahyam, and then because it is for the same reason, because it is self-revealing, it does not need to go and catch anything either. Because everything, it reveals everything effortlessly without getting into the status of the knower. It reveals itself. This is what it means. It reveals itself without becoming a knower, without needing to become a knower. Like the uncelebrated Tanpura player who is constantly playing in the background, but really without that background, the foreground is not enhanced at all. It leads to a flattening of the entire concert without the background. And so this grahya and grahaka, that difference is not there. And therefore nityam, he goes back to this nityam, that's why it is constant, and it is avinashi. Avinashi means without being subject to destruction, limitless and not subject to destruction. And then vibhu, next word vibhu, vividham bhavati iti vibhuhu. Who is vibhu? The one who becomes many, as it were, without undergoing any change. And that's why you see, back to the whole music example, we have one note, sa. That sa note is called shadja. Yes, shadja. That one note, the first note, sa, shadja. You know, shat swaraha jayante yasmat. And you know, where the other 6 notes are born from this is called sa. Sha becomes sa because of a grammar rule. No? Kind of a grammar rule. So, that shat means 6. 6 notes are born of which is the first note. So, if you really, for the sensitive, the people who are not tone deaf, apparently can sense all the other 6 notes in sa itself. So, like this, avinashi, the non-destructible sa, that constant, out of which everything that rises and falls, born and gone, comes out of, resolves into, like the ocean, which sustains waves big and small, sustains the tsunami without undergoing any change, sustains the shifting of the tectonic plates underneath, above, everything without undergoing change. In its oceanic majesty, everything rises and resolves. And you know, this is what is called nityam. And also vibhu. Vibhu means vividham. You know, it, as it were, the ocean takes on the various forms. It takes on the form of a spray by the whale. You have seen the whale spray? Yeah, if you go to the ocean, you can see that suddenly in the ocean the whale breathes. And that too is just the ocean, because it's the same water that comes out. And then there is a gentle, when the Pacific is sometimes misnamed, it's not very passive. And when the Pacific is really calm, and then you just see some little gentle, you know, ripples. And then you see a ferocious ocean, an angry ocean. a tsunami-fied ocean. An ocean with lot of surfs and breakers. All of them are what? Just the ocean. They don't have form without the ocean. Ocean has to give the permission to all these incarnations. The ocean sustains these incarnations. As it were, under the law of the oceans, the incarnation persists and then, fall back and are resolved into the ocean without affecting the ocean. You cannot say the ocean has become many just because it is having 10 waves today. No, it can have 55 waves, it is still not many. It can have 500 waves, it is not many, it is just one ocean. And like that, this Vibhu, without undergoing any change, that is the important part of this. Without undergoing any change whatsoever, and without needing something else to make that change happen, it manifests as many while being only one. So that is why it is called Vibhu. See, from the Vividham, many, we take the Vi, and then from Bhavati, we resort it to the root verb Bhu. We take Vibhu and we make a noun Vibhuhu. It's like an initial, TGIF. It's the Sanskrit TGIF. Yeah. Vibhu. So the V stands for many, Vividham, and Bhavati means becomes many, as it were, Bhu, Vibhu. It's a little, initial. And then, so, and what does it, the ocean manifests as many waves, and what does this Vibhu, this Brahman called Vibhu manifest as? And here the answer is given, Brahmadi sthavaranta paryantam prani bhedaihi bhavati. So what does it manifest as? It manifests as everything starting from Brahmaji, the so-called creator, of the one who is equipped with the status of the creator, and Adi Shankara's typical line, Brahmadi sthavara paryantam, and but specially of interest in this Upanishad. Why? Because here Lord Brahmaji is the teacher manifest. So therefore here we are talking of not Bhagavan, but we are talking of the portfolio of the creator, a kind of a portfolio of a Devata here. So that Devata body, that celestial body is created by what? What is the cause of the creation of any body? Karma. So the celestial body means lot of good karma. Let's not forget. And then Sthavara, a tree in the yard. That also is a product of karma. Don't forget, it's a living, breathing thing. It's not just some ornamental thing. It's alive. And so, and they have tested this. There was some, even recently I sent you an article about the life of plants. So they have tested this, and if you go aggressively towards the plants, not only do they secrete certain things, but they also have SMS. They text to the other plants and say, beware of this. And the plants can also pick up the perpetrator from a lineup of innocent people and say, this is the killer. This is what it is. They are intelligent. There is intelligence there. What is that intelligence? Brahman, Vibhu, that is also Vibhu. It is Vibhu, Vibhu, Vibhu all the way. And the truth of Prabhu is also Vibhu. Prabhu means the Lord. This Vibhu only is called Prabhu. And everything is just Vibhu, Vibhu, Vibhu all the way. Just like the ocean, sustains the tsunami and the miserable wave simultaneously, effortlessly, without undergoing change. So all life forms from the celestial devatas, and even in the celestial devatas there are gradations. There are people who, turn down the bed for the bigger devatas. They just do turn down service. They just dust and then turn down the covers and, place one toffee on the bed. But they also have some good karma. and certain other celestials, they just go like this, and other lower rung celestials bring them chai wala devatas, turned down devatas. All these things are there. And then there are higher rung celestials. Doesn't matter. From the celestial body to the body of what we call a lowly plant, the lowliest plant, maybe dandelion, even though it's named after a lion, and tries to be very dandy. Nobody likes it very much, It's a hidden treasure for the liver. It's very good for the liver. But nobody likes it. In fact, if you see one, you get angry and you want to weed it out. But it's still vibhu. What you are weeding out is vibhu. And the weed doesn't think I am a weed. It thinks, what are all these stupid grasses doing here? There is more of my kind. Oh, I think I need to pollinate. Phoo, it just goes. It's all vibhu, 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 vibhu. So from Lord Brahma himself, Lord Brahma means the Devata that is given the task of the so-called creation, to the lowliest plant, the most uncelebrated weed in between two pavement stones, is all the most celebrated, the constant Brahman only in various forms and names. And then what? सर्वगतं व्यापकं आकाशवस्तु आकाशवत् सुसूक्ष्मं शब्दादि स्थूलत्वकारणरहितत्वात् Yeah, somehow we managed, good for us. Anyway, so one thing before we go further, here look at the third case. Vividham bhavati brahmadi stavaranta prani bhedaihi bhavati. What kind of a third case is it? No, not instrumental. Itham bhave, third case, meaning the third case, it's not an instrument, because Brahman is not an instrument. It is free of all karakas, factors of action. Yeah, it is in the form of that. It is in the very form, and so very appropriate use of this, with rarely used a specific meaning of the third case. Sarvagatam, he is explaining, all pervasive. Vyapakam, he uses another a verb, V plus ap, vyapakam, and vyapakam means accommodating everything, like even akashavat, like even space. Space accommodates. You see, the Vedantins don't have, we are kind of, handicapped for the use of examples. Brahman is like ... How many Brahmans are there? One. What is it like? Nothing else. That is what we have been studying. So when you say Brahman is like, handicap. Correct? Yeah. Brahman is unlike, handicap. So we have only two metaphors. One is light, because buddhi, when it sometimes works, things come to light. That's one metaphor. And the other one is space. No other metaphors, and even those fall short. Brahman is like space. Space accommodates everything, but Brahman is like space, but it is better than space, because that which accommodates space is Brahman, out of which space has come and into which space resolves is Brahman. Correct? So therefore we don't have much metaphors. So poor Adi Shankara says Akashavat. Akashavat means like even space accommodates all the planets. Space is like the endless sari of Draupadi. In the Mahabharata, Draupadi was disrobed or attempted to disrobed by the badly behaved one whose name is Dushasana. Actually, his name must have been Sushasana, well behaved. But after this bad behavior, it was changed to Dushasana by popular demand. So what did Dushasana do? Dragged her by the hair into this assembly, because the Pandavas had a gambling addiction. They were addicted. See, this just shows it doesn't matter if you're dharmic. The addiction overpowers dharma. All of them were very dharmic. But the addiction makes you do things like this. And in the Hindu dharma, in the Vedic, tradition, women are never considered property. In fact, while the people here were waiting for the right to vote and waiting for certain archaic British rules, in the Victorian England, even in as late as Victorian England, women were considered property of men. Never in the Hindu tradition. Women are people in their own right. They always were. And then influenced by all kinds of, addiction. And of course, patriarchy. What did the 5 husbands of Draupadi do? They staked her as a prize possession, egged on by drink and gambling addiction. Because they lost their kingdom, they lost their army, they lost everything. And what was left is they staked Draupadi, even though this was against unlawful. And of course they lost because the die was loaded by one mama. Who is mama? Uncle. Gandhari's brother, Shakuni. His real name is Apashakuni, means bad omen. Bad news. His name itself was bad news. Here comes bad news. And bad news doctored the dice so that they would always lose. And then Draupadi was dragged into this filled assembly of all kinds of onlookers. And Dushasana says, now that she belongs to us, we can disrobe her in public. Which is when she, throws up her hands and prays to Krishna. I hope you are watching this, she says, because I am married to 5 husbands and not one of them, is able to protect me. They're all watching this shamelessly. I hope you are watching this injustice and I hope you are going to do something about it. And Krishna, for him, he had a sari manufacturing plant right in his head, being Vibhu, being Prabhu. It was very easy to manufacture endless amounts of saris. So one sari he would go like this and then throw it on the ground. Another sari she was miraculously draped in, correct? And then what? Then after a while his hands got tired. He suffered from RSI. What is RSI? Repetitive stress injury. Because repeatedly he kept on pulling saris and dislocated the shoulder. And they said that he pulled out 300 saris and she was still clothed, completely from head to toe. And then, he had to give up. And each sari was a designer sari coming from the manufacturing plant of Lord Krishna. Each one was custom made, unlike the others. And then all the wives of the 100 baddies, the Kauravas, were drooling over this. They said, they immediately did the math. They said, there are 100 of us, 3 saris each, and designer saris. Come on, ladies. And Dushasana also encouraged them. Yes. In fact, he said, and all the husbands said, we couldn't disrobe her. But why make these saris go to waste? All of you pick up a few. Go change and come. We want to see you in this. And then the story goes that they were magic saris from the magic plant. And once their thing was done, the purpose for which they were created was done, Krishna recalled them as soon as the 100 ladies came back into the assembly. So who was unclothed? Unfortunately, this is the people who wanted to unclothe were the ones unclothed. So this is the story. So anyhow, so why are we talking of this story? I haven't forgotten. And we are talking about this story because just like Draupadi's saris covered her endlessly, Brahman covers everything. Yeah. We say Bhagavan is Digambara. covered by space, but really that's our limited imagination. Yeah. In fact, Bhagavan covers space, it covers everything. This Brahman, which is the truth of me, covers everything. In fact, nothing covers it, nothing can cover it. Always uncovered, it accommodates everything. And that's why it is susukshmam, the next word. Susukshmam means so subtle that you cannot understand, you cannot see, you cannot grasp, you cannot do anything to it, except thankfully it is self-revealing, so you can know it as yourself. More we will see after the break. Om Purnamadah Purnamadvidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.